Organizations of Nigeria has drawn the attention of the Minister of Information and Culture to what it terms the flagrant violation of the Nigerian Broadcasting Code by the National Broadcasting Commission. In two separate letters signed by the Executive Secretary of BON, Yemisi Bangboshe, the organization says Nigerian broadcast stations no longer trust the professional judgment of the NBC in the areas of imposition of fines for alleged infractions. BON says, quote, "The high-handedness of NBC is almost suffocating the broadcast media," saying that NBC's independence has been questioned as it seems primarily influenced by the current government. It faltered the imposition of a 5 million naira fine on a broadcast station for an alleged infraction during a live program that featured the Labour Party vice presidential candidate Dati Baba Ahmed, saying that NBC relied on a petition by the Media and Publicity Committee of a political party to impose the fine without any major investigation.
Well, there are calls for election tribunal proceedings to be broadcast live. The president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Mekiao, senior advocate of Nigeria, has called for the live broadcast of the proceedings of the process. Arise legal analyst Frank Tiete joins us now to discuss this, among other issues, of course, including the seeming attempt to close the media space. We'll get to that. But this call to make the court proceedings public, they have been on for a while, but they're seeming to gain a lot of traction now, especially when you consider Section 36 of the 1999 Constitution. How does that stand side by side with what is being demanded now?
Well, the Constitution supports it wholesomely. It's a surprise that we have not taken interest in that for a long time. The organization that I have led, the Citizens Advocates for Social and Economic Rights, had successfully convinced the National Judicial Council as far back as 2016. The council agreed with Citizens Advocacy CASA that there is need for the live broadcast of court proceedings in Nigeria. And it often comes at the time, this kind of call often comes at a time when the integrity of the judiciary is being questioned by the public.
And that is what the NBA chairman, Mekiao, is saying, that there's no better time to come up with this than now.
But it ought to be normal. I recall in 2016 when we approached the NJC to make that order, because we thought it was going to be cumbersome asking all the chief judges of the various states of the federation to adopt the live broadcast of court proceedings. The idea was this. That was the era when judges' homes were invaded in the night. Now, the judiciary was suffering a shortage of, good reputation at that time. And then we told the NJC that, look, it is important that justice being rooted in confidence, and again, being backed by Section 36, subsection 3 and subsection 4, that actually demanded that every trial in Nigeria, whether for, whether by or against the government, must be held in public. And then whether concerning any individual, even though there are exceptions. For example, if there are applications to say this trial will expose too much and that will damage public morality, then let us not make it public. Our argument is that take the live transmitters, take the cameras to the court, broadcast what's going on there, let everybody see it, because nothing could be more public than when you have radio and television transmitters live in court telling Nigerians what's going on. Let me tell you, the courts have assumed an all-important role in our democracy, in our whole lifestyle. And then how do you now expect a group of persons, or particularly a single person, making a determination that will affect a whole lot of things in the society, and you want that to be done practically in secret? Do you realize oftentimes when there are important cases involving high-profile corruption, and then or involving high personalities, you see the DSS or the police barricading the court, screening lawyers can't even get in. All you just need is to have the cameras there, and the court will be emptied, safe for the judge to breathe clean air, and then Nigerians will be watching from the comfort of their home. And I recall from that letter, which I have here, the NGC said, at the end of deliberation, That is the NJC writing a letter signed by Danladi Halilu Esquire, who was the secretary to the National Judicial Council. It said, reference to your letter, or we wrote the letter, we actually made a request in October 2016, and then your letter on the above caption, which was request to approve live media broadcast of court proceedings in Nigerian courts to enhance greater transparency of justice delivery in Nigeria. Notice to seek judicial interpretation of Section 36, subsection 3, and subsection 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's a constitutional matter. And this is the response of the National Judicial Council. Your letter on the above caption was considered by the National Judicial Council at its meeting, which was held on the 2nd and 3rd of November 2016.
Right. So briefly, what does that response say?
It said at the end of deliberation, Council noted that the request will require development of good technology to make it possible. Consequently, Council will work towards actualization of the project. Since 2016, we didn't go to court anymore. We didn't put any more pressure on the NJC because we thought the NJC was going to do that, but nothing happened. So this call by the NBA president actually is just, it was supposed to be needless if the NJC had followed through with its promise.
Okay, here we are now, very quickly here, and this is 2023, and perhaps maybe technology may have improved. And for the benefit of hindsight, are there exceptions to this rule? Must every case should?
Interestingly, yes, of course. And that is the interesting part of it. It's a constitutional matter. Where a constitution even makes exception. First, the general rules that make every proceeding of court public. Broadcast it if it's necessary, because that is public in itself.
Then there's
the exceptions are, well, who should determine what's in the public interest, or what's public morality, or to protect the privacy of certain persons. Well, when you steal public money, and money belonging to the entire public, and then you expect to be tried privately. So for some of those things should be considered by the judge first, whether or not make an application that I want to be tried privately. I don't want the cameras to be brought into the court, just like Trump lawyers are saying.
And are there precedents elsewhere in the world?
Of course. Even the conservative Britain has moved beyond allowing the cameras to now go into its higher courts, its courts of appeal and the Supreme Court. We've seen cases like the trials of Oscar Pistorius, and it actually touched the whole world during the trial of O.J. Simpson, which was every bit of it was actually broadcast live. You could see the demeanor of the people who were the witnesses who were testifying and the judges. Now, how can a court, for example, make a political decision like determining who becomes the governor of a state, who becomes the president, and it does that seemingly in secret, and in a country like Nigeria that has growing suspicion of what the courts do, believing that the courts are not living up to integrity. In fact, they don't longer trust the court.
Now that the bar president has spoken, I want to see at what point. Now let's look at the speed of what did you get this reply when you wrote in 2016. We're trying to put that in perspective to what the NBA president has done now, so that we can expect a reply in 2023.
Let me be honest with you. The speed with which you got a reply from the NJC was actually motivated by the invasion of the judges' homes by the DSS. At that time, we thought that the judiciary really was on trial, and we are friends of the judiciary forever. So we made this recommendation, so that judiciary, if you want to save your integrity, allow your proceedings to be broadcast live. The way pieces of evidence are presented in court, admitted or rejected, let the public see actually the process of justice, and then again it deepens governance and deepens confidence in governance. Judiciary is part of the governance,
which is what Mekiao, the NBA president, has said. It will build confidence of Nigerians in the judiciary. But let's talk quickly about this seeming attempt to close the media space and broadcasting organizations of Nigeria's intervention now, saying, look, NBC is being high-handed.
Of course, yes. The NBC knows, and it's a big problem. But again, I think it has been allowed too much allowance. The NBC forgets that democracy, that we're practicing democracy in Nigeria, is not just a preference, it's a constitutional declaration. And the twin pillars upon which democracy rests is a right to vote, elections, and then free speech. The idea of free speech is that when you talk about open governance, it's about truth. But we see increasingly actually those who run government being afraid of truth. Those who run, and you forget, in simplistic expression, government is made up of the executive, legislative, and the judiciary. And when things are made open, when people express themselves freely, there is greater confidence and there is less conflict in the polity. But when you now, as the NBC, a regulator that is simply meant to uphold standards, not necessarily to serve as a restrictor, now becomes the one that is used to contract the media space, you are actually antagonizing democracy. That's what the NBC does, and you are increasing conflict. Because when the media space is open and people can freely express, especially the disgruntled persons can express their grievances, it helps them to actually ventilate, and then you can see a responsive government trying to live up to the standards. But when a situation, people don't think, we keep telling them that government is not a tea party. You think that you want to come into government and you don't want to be scrutinized. Everything about government is open. When you come into government, and then you are supposed to, according to the Supreme Court justice, you are supposed to either take cotton wool to block your ear to hear, so that you don't hear criticism, because they must definitely come, because you are being held to high standards, and these standards are constitutionally mandated upon the press to hold government officials, that is judges, the president, and members and members of the National Assembly, to account every time. They scrutinize everything about them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the situation, but when you look at what the broadcast organization is saying, they say, look, how can you defy Section 36 of the Constitution? You be the accuser, you be the judge, and then you impose fine. You don't give opportunity for fair hearing. You don't give opportunity to the station to come and say, this is what happened, we delayed it, or man has a right to that is covered by fair speech. You know, so the high-handedness of the broadcasting, the NBC, is actually threatening democracy. It must retrace its steps, or else it is going to be a serious undoing to the stability of Nigeria.
Well, we're sure that NBC is a partner in progress, just like the media is referred to as the fourth estate of the realm. Thank you very much, Frank Tete, for joining